Hey guys, welcome back to Hypnovision Studios. I am your host, Nick. Today, we are coming back around to semen retention, but not only that, the mastery of self. And also, we are following up on a previous video I made about a month ago that was a 30-day challenge. So today, I'm going to open up about my own personal journey over the last 3 years, and I'm going to share some new information with everyone out there. Now, my goal for this video is to enlighten people out there that want to know more information, but also at the same time, I don't want to alienate anyone or make anyone feel off-put or embarrassed about certain aspects of sexuality itself. So the goal of today's video is just to open a discussion. I, for one, at the beginning of my journey, was so far out of the knowledge that I went through a phase of anger, sadness, a bit of depression when I started learning some of this stuff. And if you track all the way back to some of my earlier videos, the whole idea of regeneration of the mind was something that I spoke about. And now I truly believe that is a real thing. The other idea of spiritual enlightenment, I do also believe is real. So with that, guys, I want to start to dive into some of this stuff. And I also want to ask, if you saw the last video and you took the 30-day challenge, please drop a comment and let me know not only how far along you made it, but what kind of effects did you feel from it? Because for me personally, over the course of 3 years, I have had moments where I relapsed in the early stages. After my first 90 days, I had a relapse, and I told myself never again. Actually, after my relapse, I experienced a lot of fear of releasing. And that was due to the understanding that the time that it took for me to go that far really elevated the value of the release itself, because I wanted to share that with someone. It's a shared experience. So, this is the part where we kind of blur the lines between just being healthy and healthy sexuality, and also, recognizing and acknowledging that there are men out there that are very uncomfortable and very embarrassed about this topic, and it's hard to talk about. I, for one, am very fortunate. I have overcome the fear of not only just talking about it, but being on camera and discussing some of these topics. So with that, guys, please allow me to welcome everyone here. I will never judge anyone. I will never look down on anyone who struggles with some of these aspects, because I certainly did in the beginning. So throughout this video, I want to read some excerpts, but I also want to freely talk on the mic and share some of my own experiences. The ascended mastery aspect of semen retention or abstinence, right? This is the same thing as celibacy, but with semen retention, it is going a step farther than the term nofap, where we are completely abstinence. So part of this is to also desexualize the mind, because we can become overly stimulated sexually to the point that we burn ourselves out. So the ascended mastery is when your thoughts, your desires, your body, and energy move as one. It is when you no longer desire the chase, because your presence draws in what is aligned. It's when you stop leaking the energy and start generating. For men, semen is more than fluid. It is also frequency. Now, I talked about this before. There are many different ways you can see frequency. One way is the frequency, or how often frequently you are releasing. This is the essence of your life force. Every release is not just physical, it is chemical. It is emotional and spiritual. And if you have been watching my channel for any amount of time, then you know that I talk about the nervous system and alchemy. So this is really all tied in together. My channel would not exist without the practice of semen retention in my own life. It has elevated me in such a way that I'm not in a conceited mindset, but I know what I can do and what my capabilities are without the external validation. So retention doesn't mean fear of sex. It means awareness of your value. And that takes me back to what I said in the beginning. The value, like once you go a certain amount of time, you understand that the value of that release and the desire to share it with someone is more than just a one night stand. It is more than just watching porn and releasing, right? So there is a sense of value, a shared value that happens with this. And we're going to move on and we're going to talk about women in just a minute. So just stay with me. It means choosing where your power flows, not being ruled by urges that pass in seconds. So those urges, those primal urges, right? When we start to talk about spirituality, whether it's religion or different denominations, the spirit of man, right? Or the primal urges, the physical urges of the body, right? So the body is made primarily of carbon, and that is where we get the 666. If you have a religious background, then you would automatically think the mark of the beast. Well, in some sense, when the mind cannot control the body, it is like a beast. And we have to break a horse in, right? When we get a horse, we have to break a horse in so a person can ride it. It is hard to ride a wild horse because it does what? It bucks. It can throw you off the horse. It's a wild animal, right? So the father, the mind, right? This is how I come to understand all this through semen and retention. It gave me so much clarity and understanding the difference in what religion tells us that things are and the description of what religion tells us that things are, like washed by the blood, for example. We always see that depicted with Jesus and the crown, right? But you learn through semen retention that your spine, your nervous system is the tree of life. And that seminal fluid travels up and down your spinal cord. It also is a lubricating fluid for your spine. It also carries life-creating force. So when it is reabsorbed and it travels back up into the mind, it regenerates new cells. It stands to reason, right? Because it creates life, it can create new cells in the mind. Regeneration of the mind or reincarnation. Where do we get that term from? The whole idea of reincarnation is the 12 major nerve centers that are connected to the mind that flow down into the body. So to reincarnate, right, that is allowing that fluid to travel back up. I, for one, am 45 years old, guys, and it was only just three and a half years ago that I started to learn about this. So as you can imagine, and I'm sure there are a lot of men out there that are in a similar situation, you might have gone a long period in your life and did not know any of this stuff. So once you start to learn it, it is beneficial to start to practice it. And once you start to practice it, then you start to see the results of things. So celibacy itself is just it's the act of not having sex. Celibacy is not about running from intimacy. It is about giving yourself space to know what is real, to realign your body, your breath, and your spirit. Now, guys, I talk about meditation a lot. Meditation is something that is deeply tied to breathing. And if you understand anything about the elements of earth, the ether, right? We can spell it with an A, we can spell it with an E, but it is still ether. We know that static electricity is in the air because you could take a balloon, rub it to your head, and your hair stands up from the static electricity. We also know that radio waves are sent through the air. TV waves, cell phone signals are sent through the air. You can't see them, but they are all around at any given time. The only way that you can pick one up is to do what? Do you tune into the radio station? So your body has a way of tuning into different frequencies. That is very interesting. So to realign your body, your breath, and your spirit for both men and women, this is where clarity begins. Because energy isn't just shared, it's absorbed. The nervous system is the original simulation. That is very interesting, guys. I often talk about it, and I just did a video yesterday about the stimulation is the simulation in the nervous system. Every touch, every gaze, every partner is downloaded. That's why discernment matters and why stillness heals. Let me be clear. This isn't a message against pleasure. By no means am I against having pleasure. But the unguarded pleasure can become an enemy of purpose. When you give your body to people who don't see your soul, you chip away at who you are at your core. You fragment your own signal. You become foggy, tired, confused about what is yours and what was left behind. That's why the ancient masters taught restraint, not as control, but as reclaiming. Retention is a return to power, a return to purity, and a return to peace. It's a magnetic pull that no cologne, no flex, no chase can ever mimic. You become the light in the room because you are full and you are focused. And above all, you are aware. So guys, 3 years into my journey, I can definitely tell you that the cycles of the sun, the moon, the cycles are real. There are certain moon cycles that if you don't know anything about astrology, you can go and look up your birth chart, right? And once you find out what your sun sign is, your moon sign is, then you can start to track your bodily cycle, because the moon and the sun affect the water that is in the body. It affects the electrical impulses, which is also affecting the mind and the nervous system. The chemicals also, right? So they say there's a gravitational pull between the moon and the tides of the oceans, right? So it stands to reason that if we have water in our body and we have salt in our body, we have chemicals in our body, that there is also a similar effect with the moon cycles. Now, you can also track the seed, if you want to call it that, because it travels every 28 or 29.5 days back up into the pineal gland, or the pituitary gland area that is known as the land of the milk and honey. So wherever you are on your journey, you must realize that there is a lot going on behind the scenes inside of your body. You have roughly around 50 trillion cells in your body that are always going through cycles of life and death and regeneration. So the healthier that you can keep that inner tree of life inside of your body, the more healthy your mind is going to be. And that, my friends, is one of the first steps to mentalism. The 7 laws of the Hermetics. Law 1 is everything originates from the mind. The all is mental. So the mind is the father of the garden, right? Because we can take the metaphor of the soul and the soul, right? The soul of earth, the dirt. Mother Earth will grow whatever you plant in it. The soul of the human will manifest whatever is put into the mind, will grow down into the soul. It will have roots into the inner soul of the being, and it will come back out as a manifestation. So what goes in must come out. You probably have heard that a million times in your life. There is certainly a lot of truth to this. Now, there are some other things that I want to discuss in this particular video. One of those is the absorption in the feminine aspect, right? So we all know that you can get a woman pregnant. There's really no need for me to really dive deep into that. But did you know that the absorption can have long-lasting effects on her, even if the end goal is not for pregnancy? You can affect her hormones. You can affect her mood. It starts to change the chemicals in her body. So there's a few things. This here's from the journals of psychology.org. And this is a very interesting article here. It says seminal fluid is often assumed to have just one function, and that is reproduction, delivering sperm to fertilize the feminine. But seminal fluid also transmits signaling agents. Signaling, think sigil or think signs. This is a indicator in the DNA. The seminal fluid contact with female tissues initiate a controlled inflammatory response that affects several aspects of the reproduction function to ultimately maximize the chance of a male producing healthy offspring. So guys, there's another section that I want to share with you in this video. This is from the journals of psychology.org. And this is in regards to how semen is absorbed in the female. And even if the goal is not for pregnancy, the semen itself does affect the female in ways of the chemical balance, mood swings, and it also, because it is being absorbed into her body, there is a DNA imprint. And this is very interesting because there is, scientific proof that backs some of this up. Providing sperm to fertilize at conception is a primary biological function of seminal fluid, but not the only one. Research over the past 2 decades shows that seminal fluid acts to promote reproductive success by mechanism that involve complex interactions with the reproductive and immune systems of the inseminated female. Semen or seminal fluid comprises spermatoza and seminal plasma. Now guys, plasma, that is interesting because one of the parts of regeneration of the mind is the plasma and blood concept, right? You know that plasma and blood are closely tied, but how is that made in the body? The washed by the blood, right? When I started to dive deep into a lot of this stuff around this topic, I was so far out of the knowledge. But when I finally learned that the pineal gland contains crystals, microcrystals that are piezoelectric. If you look up the definition of it, it means that these crystals release energy when they are put under a mechanical stress. So vibration, where they are hitting each other, they are releasing impulses, right? So when the semen and the pituitary gland come together during the cycle of the seed returning back to the mind, there is the regeneration of new blood cells. This is the electrical and the life essence force coming together. And this is the regeneration process. You can call it washed by the blood. You can call it being reborn. You can call it reincarnation. But it gives new life on the inside. It brings mental clarity, and it also enlightens you, because if you watch how the seed, when it goes into an egg at conception, there is a burst of light. The same thing happens in our mind. There is a burst of light, and that is where you get the whole idea and concept of illumination. Not Illuminati, but illumination. And you understand that the third eye is, right, we take a triangle between 1, 2, and 3 where the pineal gland sits, or the third eye. So, guys, there's a lot of stuff out there that would make you think devil worship stuff, but it's really not. It's to make you not interested into looking into this stuff. Because if you're out of the knowledge, then why would you question things if you are just told and just believe whatever you hear? So this stuff is very interesting, how it affects the woman also. It contains a range of bioactive signaling factors that, upon delivery into the female reproductive tract, elicit molecular and cellular changes to promote the chance of offspring, and thus transmission of the male genes into the next generation. Bioactive signaling factors in seminal fluid include all kinds of different hormones from the male. So guys, there's something else that you probably didn't know. The cycle of maturity for sperm itself. There is a life cycle and there is a maturity cycle. You are constantly producing sperm on a daily basis. During spermatosis, I could be saying this wrong, your testicles make several million sperm per day, about 1,500 per second. By the end of a full sperm production cycle, you can regenerate up to 8 billion sperm. Now, guys, you may have heard this before, but that's enough to repopulate the whole planet, and that comes from one man. So you are literally carrying between your legs the fruit of life, the knowledge of life, enough to repopulate the entire planet one time over. And that is simply amazing. It may seem like overkill, but you release anywhere from 20 to 300 million sperm cells in a single milliliter of semen. Your body maintains a surplus to ensure there is a fresh supply for conception. So what is the cycle of sperm production? The division of diploid sperm cells into haploid sperm cells. They carry the genetic data. Okay, guys, so there's a lot of different topics that are around semen retention and semen itself. It is the life essence for one, but there is also the nutrients that provide for life. Now, you would think that something that can create life would be healthy for consumption. And I know this might be a weird thing to say, but when you look on WebMD, there is a section, surprisingly enough, about is it safe to swallow. Semen is a complex substance created by the male reproductive organs. This fluid is made mostly of water, plasma, and mucus. That is the lubricating substance. It contains only 5 to 25 calories, so it is not really that rich in nutrient in that type manner. And it is made up of small amounts of other nutrients: calcium, citrate, fructose, glucose, lactic acid, magnesium, which is a very important one, potassium, protein, and zinc. So when you look at a egg being fertilized, there is that burst of light. There is the zinc is part of that process. If you perform oral on a male, you are likely to take in some semen, even if you spit it out. Wow, I can't believe that I'm reading this on YouTube, but I'm doing it. Even though it is made essentially of nutrients that you need in your daily diet, it isn't a good nutritional source. Taking it in also puts you at a greater risk of diseases or infections or other things depending on the health of the other person. So that is something that everybody on an individual basis need to assess for themselves. When it comes to the nutrient factor for your own health, for the purpose of semen retention and mental health for within, everything is there for you. It's not so much about the calories, right? It is about the nutrients that is providing back to the brain, because there is a conversion of how much blood does it take to create semen. While semen can create new life, it takes more blood to create semen. But when semen is reabsorbed back into the mind, it creates more blood. And that is very interesting when you stop and think about it in that context. So lastly, I want to talk about semen takes control of female genes. So this is from the royalsociety.org. Sex can trigger remarkable female responses, including altered fertility, immunity, libido, eating, and sleeping patterns by activation of diverse sets of genes, according to research published by Proceedings of the Royal Bee Society. It showed that semen protein is a master regulator, which ultimately means that males effectively have a direct and global influence on the behavior and reproductive systems of females. Such effects may well occur across many species. Now, guys, that is very interesting indeed. So I really want to take the last few minutes of this video and talk about some of my own experiences, because I, for one, growing up, as many people probably in my own age group, we had the internet. We were part of the early generation that was coming of age when the internet started to become in every household. And most of us, at some point in our life, were introduced to porn. I mean, we have to be honest, right? So the porn or the porn industry is something that at some point it became free, right? You could go right on Google and Google an image and boom, you have it at your fingertips. It's that easy. So what that does, right, when we think about the human imagination, when we think about intimacy, and when we think about arousal itself, when we have something like that at our fingertips, it takes and substitutes our imagination, right? Because we can just go and type in anything and we can watch it become aroused and we can have a release. Let's just put it that way. So over a long period of time, it forms a habit. Over a long period of time, it forms a pattern. I am no different. I actually had to acknowledge that within myself. And a lot of people are like closet, when it comes to this topic. They don't want to talk about it. It's embarrassing. I get it. I understand. So for me, I have no problem saying it. The whole concept of this, right? For semen retention, for going 3 years, one of the things it taught me was to reignite my imagination. Now, as it is, I already am a pretty imaginative type person. I can see things in my mind, and I don't need a blueprint to build it, although I can read blueprints. I am pretty handy when it comes to being adaptable in different situations and building stuff from scratch. But when it comes to sex, and when it comes to masturbation, and when it comes to becoming aroused by the natural body, the natural processes themselves, this past 3 years taught me an awful lot, because one of the things I started to realize early on was that I felt weird with masturbation itself. I really did. And that's probably because I had spent such a long time with porn. Not like a porn addict, but as something that was a crutch in my own life. Now, having 2 kids of my own, and being in a marriage, that is one thing because you are with that one partner, right? But over time, the imagination, if you don't nurture your own imagination, if you don't foster your own imagination, then it can become external arousal only, right? So you may become aroused because of images or going somewhere and seeing the opposite sex and being a feeling of attraction, and then go home and want to have sex. That is much different than the whole idea of the imaginative state of arousal itself. So if you know anything about Napoleon Hill, then you know that he's got a book called The Sexual Transmutation of Energy, which is taking the sexual energy and exchanging it into something else. You can do this with anything. I'll give you a good example. If somebody makes you mad, instead of responding in a state of anger, let it go. You can take that anger and channel that into working out, for example. You might have an aggressive workout because you are releasing a lot of energy that was in the form of anger. The result is you get a better physique. So you have taken this anger and exchanged it for a physical outcome, right? So instead of getting mad and getting into a fight or arguing with somebody, you go and take that out on the weight set, and you go and push your body beyond what you normally would, because now you have this motivation and you are channeling it into something productive. The same thing goes, guys, with semen retention, because when you start to desexualize and dewire your mind and start to really go back into the imagination, you can start to visualize with your own imagination. And that is something that over the 3 years that I learned was getting over that weirdness, right? Because I honestly felt so weird. Like, who do you masturbate to? Like, is it okay to think about a person and masturbate? Like, seriously, is that okay? Is that what normal people do? Like, I had all these questions and I didn't know how to ask them. I didn't know who to talk to. Because for one, it's a weird topic that makes you feel uncomfortable. So I found YouTube as my outlet to talk on a public forum. I felt more comfortable than one-on-one conversations. So yeah, drop a comment. Like, let me know, what does that feel weird to you? Because the whole concept, right, of thought transmission, I don't want to be sitting there and like fantasizing about someone and then they're picking up on that. I thought that was kind of weird. But likewise, at the same time, I learned when I finally allowed myself to just let it go naturally and allow my mind to land where it felt like it needed to land, I did find that there were times where specific people came to mind. And that was something that I had to face internally, but also the whole thing that I said in the beginning, the value of the release. It was like, wow, allowing myself to go to that place, I had to really stop myself. And that is another part of the semen retention journey, is because it takes anywhere from 30 to 90 days for sperm to become to a mature state. So every time you release, whether it's from masturbation or if it's from sex, it takes about 30 to 90 days for it to rebuild. So you understand why the semen retention challenge is 30 days, because it is allowing a full cycle in the body to happen before you start to see some results. So I'm very interested to see what you guys out there think about this and how your own journey has affected you, and some of the things that maybe you were embarrassed about before, maybe now you're just cool with it, right? It's not a big deal anymore. I'm certainly willing to talk about anything. The journey itself has truly been something that is amazing, and I'm so glad that it happened for me, and I'm so glad that I'm able to get up here and talk to you guys about it. Celibacy itself is something I never really thought I would do. Semen retention was something that the idea, the arousal of the value of finally releasing and sharing that with somebody who saw the value in me was something that it gave me fuel for the fire to continue. And here I am 3 years later with a fully functioning YouTube channel, and that is growing. So guys, I'm very grateful not only for this journey, but for the opportunity to be here for you guys also, and to hear back from you guys, to read your comments, and I try to respond to as many as I can. Semen retention will make you a master of self, right? Ascended mastery. And there's one thing I also want to add. When it comes to the zodiac signs, and when it comes to your birth charts, you inhabit all of the 12 zodiac signs. Not only is there 12 zodiac signs, there are 12 disciples, right? In the story of Jesus, there are 12 disciples. You also have 12 months. But if you go back and look at the history of the calendar, some people say there were 13 months. And that kind of makes sense when you take 29.5 days and divide it into a year. You start to realize that the cycles of the moon are not always the same time every month. And that is because the 12-month calendar has flaws in it. And also the 12 zodiac signs plus you, that is 13. The 12 disciples plus you, or plus Jesus, is 13. The whole mythology of Jesus, right? Zeus, this comes from Greek mythology, because Zeus was what? You think of him of lightning, right? What is impulses of the mind, right? Electrical impulses of the mind. The 12 cranial nerves represents the 12 zodiac signs, and it also represents the 12 bloodlines, or 13 when you count yourself. The DNA twisted around each other. Again, the cadeus. If you take the human mind and you open it up like this, it looks like wings that spread open. So you can really see through symbolism how all this stuff is represented from right inside of the body and has been manifested out into the world. And that, guys, is something when you stop and start to look around, you start to notice. And it's a beautiful thing, to be honest. So, does semen retention automatically make you attractive? Well, it depends on your baseline intentions and your personality. It will bring out who you are. Like, it will bring out your raw, genuine self. So, whatever goals you have in life, you will start to gravitate towards those the most. Does it make you a ladies' man? That depends on you, really. Depends on your goals, and depends on what your desire out of life is. I, for one, desire to continue to grow my channel, to continue to level myself up. So my desire is not so much on the idea of whether or not it makes me more attractive. I'm really not focused on that. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is because they will start to flaunt, hey, I'm practicing semen retention that automatically puts me on this bar where I'm a ladies' man. And then you go and start and you slip, right? You go and start talking to multiple women and then you slip. Or you try to practice semen retention with a partner who's not as well educated on the topic and therefore don't have the same intention behind it, right? And then there's an accident, or then there's a misunderstanding. So everything has to have a little bit of control when it comes to that. Don't be controlling. I just mean controlling yourself, controlling your urges, and being able to communicate what it is you want and desire. For me, intimacy is a big thing. To be open and honest with my partner and to share the experience. I don't need to, the validation of, was it good for you? No, I want to share the experience. And if we both have that same mindset, then it's going to be great for both of us. That's how I see it. And so, guys, I will see you down the road very soon. We are continuing to grow right here at HypnoVision Studios, and I'm always grateful for you.